feel like you're just waiting to interrupt.
I might be.
Yeah, I thought it looked that way a little bit.
The last one we did you change it on purpose or did you mess it up as you were reading?
Oh, I
it?
totally
Be
messed it up
honest.
as I was. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, in the last episode, I was pretty tired, and Jeff was teasing me that like I perked right back up to read the intro, but I was tired enough that I was not reading it smoothly.
I think what you all need to know is what you hear on this podcast from Joe Caruso is all fake and manufactured.
Absolutely.
He's not this happy.
No, never. I'm not a joyful person. I'm not a, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's out there now.
Complete hypocrite.
It's in the ether.
It's well, hi everybody. Oh my gosh. In a different I don't believe this how life works, but in a different universe, I think I would have loved to have been a voice actor.
I think you've been watching too many Marvel movies.
I probably have. Well, anyway, thanks for tuning in for today's episode of Mixed Messages with Jeff Bogue. I'm Joe Caruso, your host. I'll be excited to dive into our topic for the day. In a world where everyone, from news outlets to comedians, friends to advertisements, they seem to have a strong opinion on how we think and live and make decisions, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the noise. When everyone's offering different advice, how do we cut through the confusion? How do we sift through the information overload and determine what truly governs our lives? As we navigate these challenging questions, we want to be a resource that helps you process and pray through some of the day's most pressing issues. Let's go ahead and jump in. Hi, Jeff.
Joe, good to meet you.
Good to meet you, too. You been watching anything good lately? Like, not movies, like anything that when you sit down in front of that box at your house, you watching anything good?
I like home improvement shows.
Oh.
So I like getting ideas. So, and I also like the show Gold Rush. So I have this tradition. So Gold Rush airs on Friday. We have Saturday services.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually come home late on Saturdays,
Sure.
like 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Heidi's almost always in bed. So I make some version of like a little bit of food. And I sit down and I watch Gold Rush. And Heidi's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. There's something about I'm like a child. Like the big trucks that everybody kind of wishes they had.
Oh, yeah, they're giant.
And then how much gold did they get?
Yep. I have seen a little bit of that because my in-laws are super into that show.
Do they like it?
Yeah, they love it. And so every once in a while when I'm at their house, it'll be on. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. But then I never turn it on myself.
No, it's there's no plot. There's no big thing. It's just literally trucks moving dirt.
Yep.
Is really what it
And then how much gold? Yeah.
down to. So
No, we've been watching, so I'm pretty sure it's Amazon Prime, but Mr. Beast has a game show.
The kids were, I watched some of that because the kids were into it.
Yeah, it's called Beast Games, and we watched it all. It's finished now. They started with like 1,000 contestants and then nailed it down to one that won $5 million.
It's a study on human nature.
It really is. Like there are physical challenges and stuff, but there's some serious psychological challenges.
Yeah, like you can sell your team out. And
Yeah, well, the one that really was kind of early on, spoiler alert, but no, they had you like, hey, everybody probably just wants to have fun. We had a hard couple of days. Everybody pair up into 3 people. We're just doing like sack races, stuff like that. So they pair up into friends, and then they're just having fun, like a field day almost. It's like, now that you have your 3, follow me. And then he puts those 3 people into a cube, and the 3 of you have to decide which one of you is going home.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my gosh, like it's intense psychologically.
And some people volunteer.
And some people trick each other. And
I saw the one clip where the girl, if everybody stayed on the platform, everybody stayed in.
oh yeah,
But if you jumped off when the clock ended, you got $50,000. Well, she jumped off, but she jumped off early. You get $50,000, but your whole platform gets eliminated. She jumped off early, didn't get the $50,000, and eliminated her whole platform. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a fascinating.
yeah.
thing.
So the whole show was. It keeps along it was fascinating. Our whole family enjoyed watching it together. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But that's why people tune into this podcast right there.
I like Gold Rush and World War II documentaries. I'm officially a middle-aged man.
Yeah, I was just going to say something very similar. Oh, well.
And every time I have one on, Heidi's like, you know who wins.
Yeah, right.
She's like, I can tell you the winner. Like, don't spoil it.
Don't spoil it, yeah. All right. Well, we do have a listener that wrote in today, Jeff, and it's might be timely. As a matter of fact, if I'm remembering right, this one might have even come in anonymously, which is an option, of course. And I kind of hope they reach out not anonymously because I like how they're thinking, and I think there's some good things here. But they say, hey, I'm writing to ask about discerning God's will for one's life, specifically what one should study and later have a career in. I'm a high school senior and am at the point where I need to decide on next steps for my life. I've recently been feeling like God might want me to study and work in ministry, women's ministry specifically, but I don't know for sure, and I'm terrified of accidentally going into a vocational ministry for the wrong reasons. I have lots of experience in housing ministry and children's ministry, but I don't know if I'd be any good discipling other women. I'm afraid that I'm not a strong enough Christian for that. I just know that I'm passionate about women and girls feeling valuable in the eyes of Jesus. I know far too many who have no self-worth, and that breaks my heart. I've been told that I tend to be very encouraging and hospitable, which I think would be good traits to have in the ministry field. How can I know if God is nudging me toward work in ministry full time, or if there's a different reason that he put those issues on my heart and gave me those gifts? And if I'm not called to vocational ministry, how can I know what vocation I am possibly called to? First of all, that's one of the most well-written questions I think we've ever gotten.
Yeah,
like
I know.
it's just like, can you come in and write with us on staff? Like, I don't know. But yeah, Jeff, like how would you help this high school senior?
It's a phenomenal question and a great question. And I think I would say a few things. Number one, I would say that make sure or try to make sure that you have a proper view of vocational ministry.
Oh, that's excellent.
Vocational ministry is not a higher calling. It's a different calling. Mm-hmm. And what you want to look for in your life is you want to look for what God has called you to do, and you do not need to get a paycheck to do that.
Yep.
So I would say, like, start doing women's ministry.
Yeah.
So start discipling people, start a Bible study, start a Jesus space, and just start reaching out and connecting with the women who are all around you.
Yeah.
And live out the life of someone who is a follower of Jesus. We all are called into ministry. Now, there is a distinction, I think, in the Bible between vocation, what we call the Bible doesn't use the word vocational ministry, but we call it vocational ministry, and life ministry. And so there's a couple things you can look at. One, we have a program here at Grace for high school students called Momentum Marketplace. Mm-hmm. And what we do with that program is we set you up with mentors, and there's a bit of like a curriculum, like a program that you go through. But we're actually helping young people understand their calling into ministry, and that calling is tied to their vocation. So there's men who run companies. There's a lady who's the head of the Chamber of Commerce. There's a lady who's a businesswoman. A guy who's in the medical field, on and on and on. These are entrepreneurs. These are different people who love Jesus, who recognize that through their vocations they interact with employees, they interact with the public, and that Jesus has given them a unique influence and a unique voice for him that is different than the pastor's voice. And so we're helping high school students discover that, think about how to utilize that and act on it. And I would highly recommend that she connect with Pastor Todd, or who's our student ministry pastor, Todd Shoemaker, and find out about that program, because I think he or she would get all kinds of good things from it.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to remember. Those of us who are pastors, we do not have a higher calling than someone who's called into medicine or education or whatever.
Yep.
We just have a different one. Now, in the scripture, the Bible makes a delineation, and the Apostle Paul says, if you serve the gospel, in essence, the gospel should serve you. and that those who proclaim the gospel with their life should be supported by the church. It's all in the scripture. And then the Bible says it's unmuzzling the ox. It's letting us do that. So if you ask me about being a pastor, what I would say to you is I don't consider myself to have a job. I consider myself freed from the burden of working in the marketplace to minister to people on Christ's behalf with all of my life. So I don't think about clocking in and clocking out and benefit packages and all that kind of stuff, climbing a corporate ladder kind of a thing. By the way, I don't think all that's bad. I don't consider it because my financial needs are met by the people of God. And we call that vocational ministry. I think it's more like how a missionary should think and less how a person who draws a paycheck and keeps hours and clocks in and out of a business should think.
Yeah.
Those people, that pastoral position, most pastors in the world are not paid. And the vast majority of people who work in ministry are not paid. So we happen to live in a culture that the culture is wealthy enough that having a paid pastor is something that we can do. It's very biblical. It's a biblical thing, but it's not a biblical necessity. So when we talk about being a vocational pastor, we're not talking about choosing a profession as much as we are talking about being freed up to live a calling full time. And so I think you have to start with being clear about that.
Yeah.
And then in that, our pastors, our directors, our missionaries, our people who run support stuff for the church, video people, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes in there. But it's not a higher calling. It's a different calling.
Yeah. I absolutely love that, Jeff. There's such an unfortunate mindset every once in a while that creeps in that you don't, quote unquote, have to do ministry if you're not on the staff of a ministry. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. So much of the wonderful and excellent ministry that is done through any church, even if they're not, like you were saying, like the bivocational or the unpaid pastors, are by the people of the church.
Right.
They're the ministers of the Gospels. They're the ones that are living out the life of Jesus. They're the ones connecting with their neighbors and their friends and supporting people in their groups and their neighborhoods and their communities. And they're the ones helping them understand and see who Jesus is. And even in this case, our reader mentions, like, I've been told I'm encouraging and hospitable. You should always be encouraging and hospitable in whatever environment. And I love the advice you give of begin to experiment with what it looks like to do ministry with women, because I think one of the things that might help you understand how God is nudging you is you're going to start to feel a certain way as you're doing that. Like, I know back when I was wrestling with this question, I had a good job that had a career path in front of it that would have been a good one. I was in management at UPS, and I'm like, this could be a great lucrative career. And I got to the point where I'm like, I can't do anything else with my life besides always be completely infatuated with the work of the ministry.
Yeah.
Like, I needed freed up or I was going to drive myself batty. Lots of people aren't that way, and that's okay. Because, go ahead.
Yeah, I say, when I'm talking to young people about this, I always say two things. I say ministry is a great way to live. It's a horrible way to make a living. Ministry is not a good job. It's a wonderful life.
Right.
But you have to understand those two things. And then I say to people, if you can do anything else with your life besides ministry, you should do that. Because what happened with you is, and me too, is you come to a point where you're like, I'm going to feel disobedient to God.
Yep.
Okay. Now I want to be clear about something. That disobedience is tied to what you give your life to, not tied to how you make your house payment. So my spiritual calling and my spiritual responsibility is not because I'm a full-time pastor.
Right.
So this is even if the church couldn't support my family financially, I would still be responsible to God for that. And that's what a bivocational pastor or a volunteer pastor is. They're in fact, the elders of our church are like that.
Yep.
So I hold the same spiritual authority as the elders of our church, but they are in the marketplaces. And so this is what this young person has to understand. Like, looking for your spiritual calling and what God is asking you to do spiritually may or may not involve a paycheck. I interact with church planners quite a bit. And when people are wanting to plant a church, I had this happen recently. They said, I had a guy who wanted to come and plant a campus with us, and he said, I just feel, he said, I'm in a church, it's not going well. I just feel like if I was full-time and in a different system, that things would go better. And I said, I don't think that's true. So if you are called to plant a church and God has given you one and it's not going anywhere and you just say, well, if I just had more money, I'm like, no, that's not how this works. The money is not going to cause you to be used by God in a more powerful way. The money is going to free you to be used by God more hours of the day in that way. But the guy who's working at Summa Hospitals right now is on the clock for Christ.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so he or she, they may have they may be on a nursing unit, and have a different set of responsibilities and even restrictions, those kind of things. But they're still as called to impact people for Jesus as I am.
Absolutely.
And so until you are doing that on your own, until you are serving and leading and evangelizing on your own, throwing money at that is not going to amplify that in your life or spark that in your life. And that's a very, very important thing. So my spiritual leadership is not my job. My job is the administration of the ministry and the work and the care of the church.
Right.
That's what I wouldn't have time to do if I wasn't a full-time pastor. And what that entails is not me doing it. That entails me and the rest of the staff taking burdens off of regular people who have regular jobs so that they can be as unburdened as possible to do what they are called to do.
Right.
So we really get that. We're like the guy with the heart, the girl with the talent, we pay them. I'm like, that's not in the Bible anywhere. That's not where it works. So you have to have that stuff. Now, I also think that there are people that God calls, you just talked about it, where you're like, I can go work for UPS, but I feel like God is leading me to pastor a church. I need to do that. And not everybody has that burden.
Right.
And so, because I have friends here at Grace that would say, I could run a company, and that's what I need to do for the Lord. Because I get to impact all kinds of people that you don't get to impact,
Yep,
Jeff.
absolutely.
So it's responding. There are unique callings into what we call full-time ministry. And this is what the Apostle Paul and others were talking about. And what he was saying was, when someone has that, help it go. So I think when you're wrestling with, am I uniquely called, what you need to ask is a few things. Number one, I think you need to investigate that. And you need to find out what it's really like. And this is where like a summer internship or a deep level of volunteering helps it, because ministry is not sitting around having coffee with people all day.
No, it is not.
Ministry is actually very hard work. It is professional work. We lead a very large organization, and so there's a skill set that comes with that. Studying, basically, what you and I do this both, Joe. We have to study a new subject, create it into a new context, and deliver it to a conference of 4,000 people every 6 days. Like, there's a skill set that has to be honed and crafted with all of that. And then there's the ministry lifestyle. I have been on call every moment of my life for the last 31 and a half years. So I'm living a certain way. It doesn't matter if I'm on vacation, if I'm in or out of the country. Doesn't matter. I have to be available. And by the way, I want to be. Because if something tragic happens, I don't want to not be there, but it's just the way that it is. So I would investigate all of that a little bit, because it's not a better lifestyle. It's a very different lifestyle than someone who works in the marketplace and then serves at the church. Because when you serve at the church, you can choose from time to time not to serve at the church. When you are in ministry, you don't have those choices. So you're going to do that, and your schedule is going to be almost in direct contrast or in addition to a marketplace schedule. So I have office hours. Like, my first meeting was at 7 a.m. today. I will wrap up my office obligations about 5:30 tonight, and then start another round of obligations at 7 p.m. And I'll be done 10:30 tonight. Well, I can't grow bitter about that or put in for overtime. So that's where you investigate. You're like, we're going to live this way. Now, like I said, it's a wonderful way to live. Please, people of Grace Church, don't hear me complaining. I love it. But it's a very different way to live. And I think what we found is when people romanticize being a full-time ministry, that can be overwhelming and disillusioning. So it's something you have to adjust to it. So I would investigate that. Second thing I would do, and some of this she's doing, which I think is great, is ask other people to affirm it or deny it in your life. Because that's part of how God speaks. When in the early church, the Holy Spirit would raise up people and the elders would affirm it and send them out. And so just look at other godly people in your life and have the conversation with them.
Yep.
And if you hear again and again, this is a no-brainer, you should go into ministry, and then look for an open door. And that open door should not involve a paycheck. So just say, where can I serve? What can I do? How do I dive all in? And when you do that and it energizes you and you see God blessing it and you're like, you know what? The quote-unquote sacrifices of ministry, I'll make those because this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. Then you look and say, well, maybe I should go to school, really get my head around theology and doctrine, do an internship or residency, something like that, and learn the skill sets with it. And then you're on a path to full-time ministry. But that path it's not better. It's very different than your friends. It's very different. Your friends get Christmas break. We get busy at Christmas. Your friends get summer rest. Depending on where you work in ministry, summers are unbelievably demanding. Your family has a weekend off. We work on the weekends. Now, we're not the only people.
No.
But because police do that and firefighters and UPS guys.
Right.
But I would just say, like, explore it.
Yeah.
And if you just feel at peace and at home and God is affirming, then that's kind of how you know that I'm thinking of their age.
Yep.
That's how you know that God's heading you down that path.
Yeah, and there's so many of those conversations. Like, we have the blessing of being able to have one-on-one conversations like that with people all the time. And so take Jeff up on this. Like, talk with those people, come in and chat with our staff or our leadership. In this case, the specific context of what you're asking, like jump onto a young adult retreat and start interacting with other peers and stuff in ministry. Jump onto a women's retreat and begin interacting with other women and see how you begin to see your gifting playing out with them. Like, what I love about this, I was nowhere near asking these level of questions at 18 years old.
Yeah, me neither.
So you're already like...
I was like, where are my friends going to college?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what I was asking.
So if God is nudging you in these different pathways, you're ahead of the game, and you're actually kind of ahead of the game even if he's calling you in the marketplace direction as a minister. But also know that the years in front of you, God will help you shake this out. If you're running after him and you're running after those types of experiences that Jeff was talking about, like, he'll start to make things clear as you go. Right now, the call is to faithfully remain close to him and do what he's asked to do that's right in front of you.
Yeah.
And so this is huge. Again, I just want to encourage you, make an appointment. Come on into our office, start those conversations.
Get a hold of Shannon Simmons.
Yeah.
So get on the church's website, look at internships and residencies. Grace College at Grace Church is Shannon Simmons is in charge of all that. Like, Google all that stuff, look it up, and make an appointment with her and see what it's like. See what the education's like, see what the pathway's like, and just explore it.
And we have, if you're being faithful to what's right in front of you, I would not be overly concerned that you're making the wrong decision.
That's right.
We have people that have come out of the marketplace into what we're calling vocational ministry. We have people that got degrees in engineering and now are pastors 5 years later.
Yeah.
We have the opposite. We've had people that go to Bible school and then decide, no, I think I'm called to the marketplace.
And we're on our staff for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, right.
And called into the marketplace, and God is using them in powerful ways in the marketplace. And
Absolutely.
they're a part of the church.
Yep.
So it is finding God's call
Yeah.
on your life, and the uniqueness of that. That's what you're searching for. But I agree with you, Joe. What a mature thing to be. I wish everybody would ask this question.
Oh, my gosh.
And I just want to affirm again what you said. You're not going to make a wrong decision here, because if you are following the Lord, He's going to land you where He wants you. It doesn't matter if He does that immediately or not.
Yep.
It matters that you're searching His heart, and He'll get you where He wants you to be, for sure. I love your heart on it.
So good. Well, if you have a question you'd like us to engage on the podcast, you can always submit those at bath.gracechurches.org/mixmessages. Jeff's actually checking that form right now. I love human idiosyncrasies, Jeff. Every time I go into the outro, you're like, okay, what's next? I love it.
It's true. Well, I am checking the form.
No, yeah, absolutely. Do you have access to it?
I don't even know where it's at.
But
I didn't even know there was a form.
So when you go to that website, there is a form that loads. Jeff is obviously not the one that submits the questions. He doesn't know. But if we can help you take any of these unique next steps or help you process even some movements in life like we discussed today, we'd love to do that. If you like what you're hearing and you want to hear more of it, make sure you subscribe, follow, rate, and review our podcast. And if you're looking for a place where we're running after Jesus, both in the marketplace and within the ministry, join us here in person at Grace or check us out online. Thanks so much for jumping in with us today as we continue to see God's voice through all the mixed messages around us. Our non-YouTube watchers sometimes have to wonder why we're just suddenly randomly laughing as you're messing around with the microphones and all the rest. But anyway, we'll see you next time.